this is the solution to example 11 from notes 1.4. It's an application of a quadratic equation, and we're told that the perimeter of a right triangle is 42 units and the length of the hypotenuse is 20 units. We're supposed to find the lengths of the other two sides of the triangle. So it's a good idea to start with a diagram. So in this case, I'm going to draw a right triangle. And I'm going to put on the information that I know. So I know the hypotenuse is 20 units long, and I know that the perimeter, so I'll call that the perimeter, is 42 units, and that is going to be the sum of the lengths of the sides of the triangle. So the perimeter is 42 is going to be 20 plus, I can call one side x and the other side y, x plus y, which would mean that the sum of the lengths of the two legs is going to be 42 minus 20, which is 22. And now I'd really like to just write this in terms of one variable. So instead of y, I can call this 22 minus x. So I'm going to get rid of y here and instead write 22 minus x. So now we have the lengths of the sides of the triangle all in terms of one variable, and I should write a let statement. So let x equal the length of one of the legs. Okay, and now we need to figure out a relationship between the lengths of the sides of the triangle. And because this is a right triangle, we can use the Pythagorean theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem says that the squares of the lengths of the legs, the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs, I should say, is equal to the square of the length of the hypotenuse. So for our problem, we can say that x squared plus 22 minus x squared is equal to 20 squared. And now we'll expand 22 minus x quantity squared. So that'll be 22 squared, which is 484, minus 2 times 22 times x. So it'll be minus 44x plus x squared is equal to 20 squared, which is 400. We'll simplify on the right side of the equation. So we'll get 2x squared minus 44x plus 484 is equal to 400. We want to set one side of the equation to 0, so I'm going to subtract 400 from both sides. So 2x squared minus 44x plus 84 equals 0. And now all the coefficients are even, so I can divide everything by 2. So I'm going to get x squared minus 22x plus 42 equals 0. And this looks like it might factor, but it doesn't. There aren't any factors of 42 that add to negative 22. So we can either solve this by completing the square or quadratic formula. So I think I'm going to use quadratic formula. So I'll squeeze that in over here. So we want to use the quadratic formula. So x is going to be equal to negative b. So that's going to be 22 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So negative 22 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 42, all over 2 times a, which is 1. And we'll start simplifying. So we get 22 plus or minus the stuff under the square root. We have 484 minus 168 all over 2. And that's going to give us 22 plus or minus the square root of 316 over 2. 316 is divisible by 4. It's 4 times 79. So this becomes 22 plus or minus 2 rad 79 over 2. We can divide everything by 2. So that gives us 11 plus or minus rad 79. And now we need to find out what these two values are. So I'm going to move over here. So these two values turn out to be x is equal to 19.89 or 2.11. And remember, x is the length of one of the sides of the triangle. So if x is equal to 19.89, the other side of the triangle is going to be 22 minus 19.89, which turns out to be 2.11. And if x is equal to 2.11, so if x is equal to 2.11, the other side turns out to be 22 minus 2.1, which is 19.89. So in conclusion, we can say that, I guess I'll write that up here at the top. So I'm going to write my conclusion here. Sorry, I'm running out of room. The lengths of the legs are 19.89 and 2.11 units. We weren't given a unit, so we're just going to say units.